I call it the hug a Nazi, make a liberal theory. That theory just doesn't work. And instead, what we've done is enrich and empower a clique of dictators in China.
Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Dana Rohrabacher has been a U.S. Congressman from my home state of California since 1989, the year of the Tiananmen Square massacre. He criticized the Chinese Communist Party then and does now, too. In fact, he's one of a tiny handful of U.S. congresspeople willing to raise the most taboo issues, the ones that the Chinese Communist Party absolutely does not want the public to talk about. President-elect Trump has considered Rohrabacher for a position in the U.S. State Department. Also, he's a folk singer and surfer. So naturally, I came to Washington, D.C. to sit down with Congressman Rohrabacher. Thank you for joining me today, Congressman Rohrabacher. You've been a congressman since 1989, and in that time, you've talked a lot about China issues. Why should Americans care about what happens in China?
Well, China as a country that's being controlled by people who hate the American way of life is a potential problem, if not a potential threat and enemy. China run by a more democratic country that is more in tune with its own people and not trying to be belligerent or militaristic is really a positive force in the world and thus positive for America. If the Chinese people are free and if Chinese people have their rights being protected by their own government, that's actually good for America as well. And that's why we should be on the side there in China of people who would like a more democratic and open system, a more accountable system, and instead of being run by a bunch of gangsters who will put you in jail and cut you open and steal your organs and sell them for profit.
Now, hey, the Communist Party denies any of that's happening.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So it seems like ever since former President Bill Clinton granted China most favored nation trade status, many politicians have followed the strategy of step one, make China rich. Step two, step three, democracy.
Yes.
Why hasn't that worked?
Well, the idea that you're going to increase the wealth and power of people in a government, and that will in some way make them more humane and more democratic, it's a longing that people have. And it's obviously, it has not worked in China, and I don't think I've ever seen it work. I call it the hug a Nazi, make a liberal theory. That theory just doesn't work. And instead, what we've done is enrich and empower a clique of dictators in China. And in fact, they are actually more of a threat now that they are wealthy and have wealth at their command than they were when they were poor. And it's a mistaken notion that people reject democracy because they are poor people. And the fact is, even in the communist era, that's just not the way it was.
Well, you've spoken a lot about things like human rights abuses, the organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners, right. Things that make the Chinese Communist Party feel bad. How do you expect China to work with us if you keep hurting the feelings of the Chinese people?
Well, that's unfortunately we have that argument is being made that we should try our best not to enrage the butchers in Beijing. Okay, and I think that basically we need to make sure that we penetrate that ring and we don't try to make friends with the clique that's running this control, but instead reached out to the people themselves and say, we're on your side. And we're not on the side of a clique having an iron-fisted grip on you and the rest of your society.
What are some of the most taboo topics the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want American officials like yourself to talk about?
Well, I think the harvesting of organs from prisoners, especially prisoners who have been arrested because of their religious convictions or other type of things, with their writings or whatever. But in terms of the Falun Gong, just people who believe in meditation and people who believe in self-help and people who have standards, humane and valued standards, putting them in jail and killing them for their organs has got to be one of the most heinous crimes on the planet. I mean, this is literally taking saints, people who are, we should encourage people to have those values throughout the world, including the United States, where we maybe the meditation and such, fine if people want to do that, but the actual truth and seeking truth and seeking to be in harmony with the world and with others, we should encourage those type of values, and to kill people like that, and especially then to add the worst kind of insult, which is killing people like that and then taking their body parts in order to make money to sustain their tormentors, to sustain the iron grip on their lives. That is the worst of all tyrannies that I could see.
Now, there are reports that you are potentially being considered for Secretary of State. If you got the job, what would your China policy look like?
Well, my China policy would be that, I would be the China policy, whatever President Trump wants the China policy to be. And that's the first thing we have to note. But I can tell you what I would recommend. And what I recommend is that when people, when there are high-level meetings between Chinese officials and American officials, that we also make it a point to bring up human rights issues, and if any American diplomat goes to China, which they would, that part of that visit would be visiting people who are whose human rights are being violated, who are under attack, and so that the people there know that yes, we recognize the people in power, but we also sympathize with others. For the last 8 years, every time there's been a meeting with heads of state, our president does not push that point at all. And so I would think it should be part of the agenda to discuss. And also, if our diplomats go there, or our elected officials go to China, they should make it a point to actually go visit someone who is a dissident.
I understand you once arm wrestled Russian President Vladimir Putin to decide if America or Russia won the Cold War. Would you arm wrestle Xi Jinping?
No, because I just had my shoulder replaced, and I think that I would need to be sure I'm right up ready for that fight, and I'm afraid that my shoulder's not ready for it.
If the opportunity happens, I'm there for you. I'm ready. I'm ready to go against him. Okay. Yeah, I understand you hurt your shoulder from a little too much surfing.
That was it. I just when I was younger, I was not told that this was going to wear away your shoulder cartilage, and anyway. But that's part of freedom, you know. I would have. They say, well, 25 years of surfing gave you that arm. Would you do it again? Oh yeah, sure I would.
That's a vote for surfing.
Surfing is great. Freedom is great, and the people there in the Falun Gong, they've opened their lives and their senses to being able to experience what life is about to them and in the universe. Well, as a surfer, I sort of did it that way.
You can relate.
Didn't have to go through the other provisions that would make me a Falun Gong. I just did it on the surfboard.
Sounds pretty good to me. So you have praised President-elect Trump for taking the phone call from Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen,
right,
because it showed that Trump is not going to be a pushover when it comes to China. Are there other things Trump could do to show China that he isn't a pushover?
Well, the first thing he could do, for example, I would suggest that he make sure that he visibly has some association with people who are pushing for more of a democratic China. We could also send a message that certain business type of rules of the game have changed, and that he could propose that, and the Chinese will get the message.
Are you concerned that standing up to the Chinese regime could affect our ability to work with China?
Yes, I am. We have to understand that there's nothing for free in this world, but I would predict that knowing the nature of tyrants and gangsters, the stronger you are with them, the broader the area of cooperation will be, because they now respect you and know that they can't go beyond this. And so actually, however, you're risking a breakdown, and frankly, a breakdown in relations that we have may hurt our business community, but quite frankly, the business community should understand their well-being is less important than the security of the United States. In the long run, we need to have a more democratic China, and that should be our goal.
Do you think there's a risk of a trade war?
Trade war benefits us.
Why?
Well, it benefits us because if we have unequal trade agreements right now with China that have permitted a flow of wealth to come in this way. If we start having a dispute over the basic rules, that flow of wealth it's not going to come from here to there. That flow of wealth will stay in the United States.
Congressman Rohrabacher, thank you for joining me today. I have one final question. Who do you think won this interview?
I will have to say that the people who believe in freedom won this interview.
I think there's only one way to decide who wins an interview. Next up is Putin.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Thank you again. It was a pleasure
pleasure.
joining you today.
Okay.